Good day, readers, and welcome back to another episode of Bratton Reviews. Today we're going to be talking about our first indie series, King's Dark Tidings by Kel Cade. Before we jump into the actual review, I want to discuss the criteria by which we are going to be judging this series, as well as make a few important notes. As with every unfinished series, we'll be looking much more at writing style, themes, and character arcs than actual plot. Because I do not own a physical copy of this book, I listen to them via audiobook. My perspective will be exclusively from that angle. Anyone who both reads and listens to audiobooks understands that the delivery is quite different, and it can alter the way you perceive the text. So I need to be upfront about that. This also means that I won't include nearly as many in-text examples of what I'm referring to. This review will be far more informal than my previous videos, more of a discussion than an up and down critique of the work. I want to make something clear before we start. I enjoyed this series. Some of what I'm going to say will seem harsh, but it comes from an honest and eager place. With all of that out of the way, let's discuss King's Dark Tidings. The opening pages are rather slow, almost as if Kel Cade decided to meet modern fantasy writing halfway from Tolkien. We are introduced to an unknown character engaging in an inner monologue about something we have no context for. There is very little to say for the literal opening words, other than I found them rather bland and boring. Very early on, we encounter one of Kel Cade's biggest weaknesses: repetition. Cade is far from the only author to struggle with varying the aspects of her writing. Sentence structure and length are quite hard for newer writers to even see in their work, more so than obvious issues such as repeating word choice. But unfortunately, we have it all here. The sentences are simply not well constructed on a whole. They're of relatively similar length, and the number of times that Kel Cade repeats an opening word is honestly astonishing. It's almost as if she self-edited the work, which is possible, and skirted some of the issues that an editor would look more closely at before publishing. Here is an example. There are 8 sentences in that paragraph. In order, here are the number of words in each of them: 21, 16, 23, 18, 16, 16, 15. This is not even a particularly egregious selection. In fact, it was utterly random. I skipped to a selection in the audiobook and listened to the first full paragraph. That is remarkable consistency, and we have not even mentioned the repeating words, the most damning of these being the, which is used 17 times in 144 words. That's 11%. Cade does a decent job of limiting common transition words, such as and or but, which seems to indicate she understands that some words make your writing weaker, especially when they're put on repeat. This all gets us to the next thing I want to discuss: show versus tell. Kel Cade seems to be hit or miss on this subject. She does a decent job of putting us into the world she has built. There are some quite lovely descriptions of the setting. Obvious showing, right? That's where things start to fall apart though, because the actions and events are oftentimes relegated to blatant tell, which to me indicates a writer who is uncomfortable with character writing. Alright, sure, there are a few examples of this, I can hear you saying. Surely it's relatively isolated, and Kel Cade goes on to tell a magnificent action story through description. Unfortunately, no. This trend continues throughout the entire series. Cade has undoubtedly improved as a writer, but she still struggles with this very thing. Many otherwise great moments are made lesser by the presence of poor prose. Here are a few examples. Let's be honest, this is not high quality writing. In fact, it's quite likely that most of us could replicate or exceed it without too much effort. But here's the thing, I know I've been harsh on this so far, and that's for good reason. I enjoyed this series quite a lot. It's fun, the action is blindingly quick, and it sucks you up into the power fantasy with ease. Sure, the writing is pretty bad in some areas, but like many before her, Kel Cade was not attempting to write a flawless, poetic ode to Tolkien. She was trying to write something entertaining, and at least for me, she succeeded. If I ever found myself thinking too hard about it, I would immediately have to listen to something else. But when I was in it, I was in it. All of that to say, I want so badly to recommend this series to you, but I have a difficult time doing so honestly because of the unavoidable flaws present in the story. And don't get me wrong, there are several things Cade does well throughout. Her humor is on point, her fight scenes can be fun and engaging, and if you're the type of person who enjoys reading about characters that breeze through conflict with graceful ease, then this is quite possibly for you. To be frank, this is where the review ought to end. I could talk for an hour or more about how the themes in the series are weak and do nothing to engage the reader, or how the characters truly never grow, and I mean at all. Or how the world being laid before us feels like it's been glued together slapdash, with new locations and cultures feeling more in the vein of an overlong anime than any deep literary piece. But that would be to ignore the heart of this series, so I won't do that. And if I'm breaking with tradition, I might as well go all the way and forego the brief respite I normally give before my conclusion. I find this series to be of largely poor writing quality. The writing is good like a high schooler's is. It does a passing job at what it wants to accomplish, but never truly excels. The themes, world building, and characters are forgettable, but at the end of the day, they are fun for what they are. A shallow power fantasy that replaces meaning with neat fight sequences and pretty good humor. That's all from me today, folks. I promise that my next review will be far more in-depth. If you enjoyed this video, consider hitting that like button. If you want more content like this, click subscribe. I will see you next time.